Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I am chatting with Jonathan Hughes about his film La Tumba, Derek Ugochukwu about his film You're Not Home, and Laura Kavanagh about her film The Radio, all of which will be screening at the Galway Film Fleadh. So thank you all so much for chatting with us. We're looking forward to the Galway Film Fleadh. It'll be nice to be able to meet up in person this year.
We're so happy.
Yeah, can't wait.
So thank you so much. So I'm going to go around and I'm just going to ask everybody to introduce yourselves and the name of your film, if that's all right. So if I can start with you, Jonathan.
Sure. My name is Jonathan Hughes and I am the screenwriter for the short film La Tumba.
You're sure? A grave.
A grave, a real freshly dug grave, just like on the telly.
Now, Paddy, is this like the time you said you found a bale of cocaine in the woods?
Gareth, that was an easy mistake to make. Cocaine could have been in that bag.
Yeah, well, most people would have opened the bag before they called us.
That was one time.
And the time the guns washed up on the shore of the lake?
Look, this time is different. I have proof.
So La Tumba is a kind of bittersweet comedy about a park ranger who comes across an elderly Spanish woman in the park one day standing next to a freshly dug grave, and he thinks it's finally his time to be the guard he always wanted to be, and he's going to solve the murder that's obviously just happened in the park. So he detains the woman and tries to crack the case despite their very obvious language barrier.
And it's like that as well. It's bittersweet. There's loads of twists and turns. It's a lovely kind of fun, but also poignant piece.
It's very sweet. It's got a wee heart behind it, I think.
Yeah. And Laura.
Yeah, I'm Laura Kavanagh. I'm director of The Radio.
Hello, Kathleen. Dad here. I'm just wondering how you're doing, darling.
So The Radio was written by Galway writer Thomas Conway, and it is about a man who uses his radio as a way to kind of keep a foothold in his routine. So is very dependent on it, and when it breaks, things kind of go off kilter for him. And his daughter comes to visit, and she figures out what's up and that the radio is broken. So it's a short about isolation and loneliness and communication or lack of.
That's a very interesting scheme as well, because you did not come as a group automatically, wasn't it? That you guys were kind of paired up as part of a process.
That's right. So this short was funded pre-COVID. So basically I applied as a director. The producers applied independently, and then there was 3 scripts that were selected by Galway Film Centre at the time, which is now Ardon. So the scheme involved us all coming together, and producers and directors kind of matching up through talking on the day, really. So we didn't. I'd heard of Evan Horan, the producer, because he works for Blinder, who I know, and so we decided to kind of join up, and then we picked this script, and then we pitched it along with the other teams. So yeah, it was an interesting process because we the writer, director, and producer, none of us knew each other beforehand, and we came together and we had a few weeks to kind of work on the pitch, and then we're successful at the end. So yeah, it felt like that pitch was a long time ago because it was well before COVID. And, interestingly, the short itself feels more like a COVID short film in the themes that it deals with. And it definitely, in some ways, the loneliness and isolation and that we all felt during the pandemic, definitely, anyway, for me, like added to being able to do the script justice.
It's just a beautiful, sort of very driven piece. What drew you to that script and that scene, actually?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was aware of the funding amount and very conscious of having, limited kind of location. It's all in one house. It's 2 actors. So that really appealed to me. And also the simplicity of the story. I just felt it was, there was no bells and whistles, but yet the emotion of it really came across. And without knowing the writer, I just felt, I knew it was a personal story, which it was. And that's something that really appealed to me. And I think that the writer gave a pitch and he explained that it was about his own dad. So I thought I was just really attracted to that side of it.
Excellent. And Derek?
So my name is Derek Ugochukwu, for those who might be listening. I am the writer-director of You're Not Home, which is a horror short film set in direct provision.
I'm afraid that's not something I can do for you.
Why not?
Bit of advice. Don't rock the boat. Those that do end up at the bottom of the sea.
I'm not spending another night in this hellhole.
The film was funded by the Engine Scheme as part of the 2021 Film in Limerick scheme to sort of help emerging writer directors to get their foot in the door in the Midwest, and it was produced by Carbonated Comet. So we shot in Limerick and cast and everything. Was good. It was a good experience.
Jonathan, I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how La Tumba was funded. What was that shot under?
Yeah. So it's kind of a long story. La Tumba first started out, I wrote the first draft of it in 2018. And it has probably been read by every single funding scheme in the country in one form or another at this stage.
Yes.
So it kept getting knocked back, and I was every year I was scraping off different ones that it didn't work out for. And then at the start of 2020, Natalie Macaulay from Spotica sent me an email saying she had seen Mother at a festival and had really liked it, and wanted to produce a short and wanted to read anything I was working on. And I had La Tumba, and every time it got knocked back, whatever producer or director I had attached, it would just kind of fizzle and they'd go off and do something else and I'd be left with the script. And I really liked it, so I sent it to her, and along with a few others that I was working on. And she responded really well, and she really liked it. So we put it in for a load of things, and it kept getting knocked back. And I think the last one that we finally tried for was the Dunleary Rathdown First Frames scheme. And they finally they said yes, so we got the interview, and we got Natasha Watt attached as director. And the three of us went in and did our interview with people from Dunleary Rathdown and the representative from IADT who was sitting on the board as well. And through that interview, we got funded finally and got to make the film.
That's brilliant. No, that's great. And it's a good story about the tenacity, those projects that you really believe in, keep going with them. Might be that one, but it might be for the next one, and you don't know, and it's kismet then when it comes together.
There was something about it. I couldn't really let go of it. I really liked it. And everyone that read it seemed to like it, but it wasn't picking up any steam. So I think I'm just really stubborn when it comes to things. So I wanted to keep going, and I kept pushing for it.
Oh, it does. It's like the theme of connection and changing your expectations of what you assume, and
loss
like that.
well.
Yeah, I actually thought there was a lot of similar themes from yours that were in Laura's as well, like that kind of loneliness and that issues around elderly and things. It was lovely. It's probably not like the cool theme. I'm sometimes things are too in, sometimes things thing, but for the funding schemes, you want to tick a box, can be okay, well, this time we're all going to talk about an issue or something like that. So it definitely didn't sit in that way, but it's lovely. And
it might have been a hard sell. It's led by a Spanish woman, and it was a hard role to cast, and you can't really, there was not going to be a name for half of the film attached to it. So I kind of see it from their perspective as well, but I'm glad that DLR kind of took a gamble with us, because I think it paid off.
Just actually now on the subject of casting, how did you find an actual Spanish woman? Because it's difficult. There's a lot of there's a lot has to rest on her to carry as well, like subtext and humor and.
Yeah, I think in the interview for funding, we were adamant that we were going to be able to find this, and then once we actually got the money, we started to panic a bit because it's a hard thing to find. So we did a really big open casting call, and we approached like movie extras bodies and theatre groups, and then there was language schools, and there was Spanish community Facebook pages, and we kind of blanketed every avenue we could and tried to get as many emails in as we could find. And Eloisa was one of the first people we actually got in who seemed to respond well to the script and liked the idea, and she agreed to read for us and sent us like a wee video. And she was incredible from the first read, so we were really lucky to find her. She's an actress and she's living in Galway at the minute. She's originally from Spain, and she teaches Spanish through drama, and she's a lot of drama experience. But this was her first ever film, so she was all excited to be on the film set and work with a camera and stuff. So it was lovely for everyone.
Brilliant. And that's kind of nice as well to introduce her to that. And like it, in a whole new realm, like Irish films, whereas even different than Spanish film, like it's different.
Yeah, I think all of her experience was theatre stuff. So this was her first time with a camera, and she was all into it. She wanted to know what everyone did and what everything was, and it was nice to see it from someone else's perspective. I think we all get a bit jaded from being on sets, and it's another short, and we're all standing in the woods, and we're a bit cold and miserable. But it was nice to have someone fresh come in and see the excitement in filming.
That's really nice. Sorry to cough there. Derek, can you tell me about, like, you have kind of two leads and there's a really great dynamic between them and such good tension there. Can you tell me a little bit about how you found and work with your cast actually as a director as well?
Okay, so initially, as part of the funding, we had to, we were sort of restricted to cast people from the Midwest, but it was a bit challenging to find, our 15-year-old protagonist who had to be, it was a specific casting, and to the role of Ikenna, who was the protagonist. So I put out a casting call on Fishbone because we had very little money, and we had to do the casting ourselves. So an agent reached out to me saying she had this client who would be interested in auditioning for the role. And by then we've seen few people, but as soon as I saw Ashraf Tomihiwe's self-tape, it was just an instant connection there. I just felt like, wow, he just embodied the character. So after that, we had to start looking for actors who would play the older brother to complement the younger brother. A friend of mine said, oh wait, there's this actor, and so we went to agency, check him out, and then I did, and Aaron Katambe, who played Chima, the older brother, and it was just, I got so lucky having both of them, and that was, they instantly connected once they got on set, and even it just felt right. It just felt good.
And as a writer director, you're in a kind of unique kind of way. You have a character in mind very, very strongly. Did that change a little bit from your script to when you were casting, or did these guys just embody what you were looking for? And then how did you get such good performances from them?
So as soon as I just kind of pictured the younger brother, Ikenna, I pictured he would look similar to a 15-year-old. And some of the cast, Ashraf was the one I saw who looked in fact, if anything, he even sort of looked younger than his age. And when he came on set, I didn't even realize how tall he was, because he was almost the same height as the brother. But, there was still a lot of, he brought that young feeling to it, and the older brother played by Aaron just had this older vibe to it, so that really worked out well. So Ashraf hadn't acted before. This is his first time, so his audition was he's just a natural, but I had to sort of depend on the more professional actors on set to sort of guide him, but he didn't even need that much guidance because he just understood the genre. And I was just there to give him, directions, upper directions, just takes after takes. Also knowing that, just knowing that each actor worked differently and to give him enough space to sort of, rest, get himself together, not stress him out, not give him too many long hours. So he'll sort of shoot around and then come back to him. But like, he was just a professional on his own. So yeah, that was just Asher's doing. Like he was just amazing for someone who had never acted before. I mean, I have to tell people that, look, he hasn't acted before, for people to realize, because he was just instantly driven.
Yeah, because it's great. Like there's so many layers to this. I think that it's such good writing. Laura, what about yourself? So you had like a really lovely chemistry between your two leads. And I'm just wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about how you found that. Yeah, so Lawler Roddy, I think is a brilliant actor, and I've seen him in lots of things. And one role in particular that stood out for me was Wren Boys, which was a short film from a few years ago. So I actually had him in mind after I read the script before we even got the funding. And when we came to do the pitch document, Evan, the producer, he had similar thoughts because he had recently worked with Lawler, and who's just a brilliant actor, a really amazing person, and he puts everything into every one of his roles. So we were really lucky. Like, we had cast Lawler way before COVID, and a long time later, like, my biggest kind of fear was that Lawler would be busy, but he remained committed to the project, and he was available for it. Angela, who plays Martin, who's the character in the film, plays his daughter, is a friend of mine who had done some amateur theatre before. She's never had never been to a set, had never acted in front of a camera. She's in a completely different line of work, but the story, when I read it, reminded me of her and her own story. So that's, another kind of bringing it back to the kind of personal. And I just knew that with someone like Lawler, who's so experienced, and, obviously it was a risk, and Angela was up for the challenge, but very apprehensive, as I would be. So we worked together and did some tapes and recordings, just kind of reading through the scripts, and she just nailed it straight away. And then when she came on set, Lawler and her spent some time together and made sure that they had enough time to kind of chat, and yeah, that was it really. They'd never met each other before coming on set, and they didn't get to do a read-through together, because I mean, that's just kind of a luxury really with short film budgets. But yeah, it worked out really well. Sorry, it's a testament to you as a director to get that type of empathetic, warm performance and chemistry, capture that on screen with someone who isn't that experienced. Yeah, I mean, I think, when she arrived and with all of the cameras and all of the crew and the hectic nature of the set, I mean, the same, Jonathan, when you're talking about working with the Spanish actor, like, you kind of forget when you're in the middle, in the thick of it, and what all these people do. So I did make sure to kind of just let her know who everyone was, introduce her to everyone, just make her feel comfortable. And and we spoke a lot beforehand. In between, our kids are the same age, so we actually were in Mayo on holidays together, and we were trying to in between trips to the beach, trying to record like little self-tapes and chat about the script. So yeah, it felt rushed, to be honest, but we could have spent a lot more time. I know, that's it. I always think that, like, there's always more that you can get, you could pick up, and like there's always not enough time really for things. It's such a hectic thing you're trying to capture, like, and especially when you're capturing something so slow and meditative. See, I can't say words today, but like that as well. And then it's like cut. Everyone run around makeup. I mean, I think like a massive note that I had to myself that I kept having to remind myself was to just
stop and let the scene happen. And especially, you know, for Lawler, like with the kind of themes and dealing, you know, thinking about the situation that this character was in, and to just kind of, you know, try and make sure that we had a quiet set and the space to be able to do that. And for me not to keep going, cut, right, move on, you know, it's to really like take a breath and just stick with it, even if it felt like we were overindulging. But there's definitely, you know, scenes in there where the actor is just kind of staring into space and your instinct is to go, right, cut, move on. But to let it breathe really and let it be. That was one of the biggest challenges.
So actually that's a kind of nice thing, is to get those beats in there and get the structure in there and that implied all process and have it be visual on screen. I just want to go back to the scripts actually at the moment. So obviously, Jonathan, you're a writer and you're doing some very interesting stuff at the moment. Are you going to the BBC?
I might be. I have an interview with them in a couple of weeks, so fingers crossed I get through the next round and get onto this Writers Academy scheme that they have.
Amazing.
Yeah, it'll be nice. They've never gotten this far in the application before, so I'm all excited.
That's fabulous. Well done. Like, that's really exciting. So congratulations. I just seen that and I'm like, we'll give you a good shout out, because we can get into that stage. Like, it's damn competitive. Like,
yeah, I think I'm in the top 50 out of about 2,000 people that applied for this round. So I feel it's nice.
And they're not slouches either. Like, it's top level people that go for this all the time. So that's like it's a nice nod to know that you're in the top 50. So anyway, but I just want to talk to you about the script actually. How do you kind of develop your ideas? Do they come to you as an inspiration? Do they come fully formed? Do you have a little list that you're always adding to?
I have the notes app on my iPhone is full of all of these like half a sentence ideas for short films that have occurred to me, usually really late at night, and you just have to type it and go to sleep. But there's some scripts that just kind of arrive a bit more fully formed. I think Mother was one of those scripts I sat down at my desk and I just wrote the entire breakdown. It all just poured out of me. And La Tomba was a bit like that as well. The first draft of La Tomba, even though it was 4 years ago, is basically the same as what became the shooting script. I'm not sure what it was. It was, I have a weird obsession with Spanish cinema, and I love the work of Pedro Almodovar, and I kept thinking, what would happen if you tried to make an Almodovar movie in Ireland? And I think this is what poured out. And I remember Peter McGann on the set of it was trying to describe it to Eloisa between takes, and he described it as Almodovar meets Father Ted. And I think that's exactly what I was going for. And it sums it up pretty well.
Yeah, and Laura, just could you tell me a little bit about like that, like your process when you get a script? What do you like to do to break it down? What do you like to do to process it? And do you work on your own ideas as well?
Yeah, I mean, with the script, because, you know, in some ways we had the luxury of time from when we first knew that we had the funding to when the film was made. Myself and the writer were able to, you know, chat a lot about it. I think we changed some of there was scenes that were introduced as a result of talking about how to show the passage of time. I mean, I think that's sometimes when you start to break down a script, you know, thinking about the time of day, you know, how do we get him from kind of his breakfast in the morning to at night without it feeling rushed or without, you know, feeling off, and just all of those kind of details that, you know, on a page when you read a script and it feels more like a short story, the practicality of adapting that then comes into play. So that the bathroom scenes actually in the radio were something that were added after we discussed, you know, how to do that and to maybe bring in a different location in the house just to make it more visually interesting and to also show kind of a vulnerability with the actor as well. And something that I really liked about the script was that there were kind of similar things that happened, but the breakfast with the radio and then without the radio, and him going to bed with and without. So, it's nothing too kind of obvious, but just to show those subtle differences. So I write, and I love working with writers and scripts. My background, I started late in film, and I worked with writers a lot in script development, and I would have done a lot of script development courses in the UK to learn about how to kind of to give writers notes without impressing your opinion, to make writers to give notes in a way that writers tell the story they want to tell, as opposed to imposing what you think it should be. So and then in terms of my own writing work, similar to Jonathan, I have notes in my phone, and sometimes I completely forget that I've written I've written short scripts, and they're filed somewhere away, and I remember that I have them, and they come back to me. But I've also kind of dabbled in writing some TV pitches lately, and have 2 pilot scripts that I've written. So yeah, like I love writing, but I also love collaborating and love working with writers. And I think I definitely, enjoy that process of kind of bouncing ideas off somebody else. I think it's, it can be a lonely place, and you don't know, I just always think, oh, this is a load of rubbish what I've written. Whereas if you're writing with someone, I just find it much easier.
And what about you, Derek? Can you tell me a bit about how you came up with the idea, the writing process? You were saying it's a scheme. Would you have developed it under that scheme, or did it come fully formed to you?
I initially wrote the script thinking I was going to put it into Screen Island because I had it to be a bigger budget. But then, I just kind of like, Screen Island didn't happen that year. So I felt like, okay, I have this script now. Let me just put it in somewhere. And then the engine scheme came up. But prior to that, the idea came to me in 2020 when I saw a picture of an asylum seeker in 2020 who was having this skin infection from the mold in his room. And because of the lockdown and the treatments, they couldn't relocate him to a new center. So that for me, there was this outrage on Instagram, and that for me was just like a horrifying story to see. And the thing just spread all over his body. So that picture just became my talisman to want to tell this story and to embody the nightmare that as a creative light to shine on the ongoing campaign to end direct provision in Ireland. So that was how the idea came around for me. And I began writing an outline for it and wrote a first draft. And after like maybe 2 drafts, I sent it out to friends to read. And the feedback I was getting was more like, maybe it would be more interesting if the younger brother was the protagonist, because I had it as the older brother being the protagonist. And that struck a very interesting aspect for me, because now seeing the thing from a younger person's, from a child's, more like a young teen's experience, I felt like that was more horrifying. So I submitted it to the scheme, and I got a professional editor on board, Brian McGill, and then we worked from there and got it into shape for shooting.
Yeah, it's a very powerful film, and you're struck by the actual horror of the situation so much more. Like you're like, oh yeah, this is exactly the type of stuff that does happen. And it's not even that far of a stretch, like The Handmaid's Tale. It's like, okay, it's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not even that far of a stretch where it's like. But
now it's beginning to happen. Like we're seeing realities of The Handmaid's Tale now, with what's going on, in America. So sometimes, when fiction starts matching reality, it gets scary, and that's the social issues that we see these days. So.
And actually, that's one thing that I thought about this that worked so well is it did it right, and it's okay. Well, this is completely a social issues film. But you don't feel like it's so uncliche. You're like, oh, wow. I do not feel like I'm taught something. You really tricked You know, I think I'm watching this brilliant horror film, and then I come out of it and I'm like, okay, my mind has been changed. So anyway, but that is what good writing does. It's like, you know, it uses story to tell truth and even that genre. So it works really well.
Thank you so much.
In the creative process, how do you pick the people that you work with? So like Jonathan, you've been with a great team before. Like I know you've worked with Natasha before as well.
Yeah. I working as a writer where you're not directing your stuff, I think it's all about trust. And if you have those people that you can turn to time and again, and Natasha Waugh is a very, very good friend of mine at this stage. And every time I finish a project, no matter if she's attached or not, I send it to her and get her opinion. And I trust her implicitly. And Mother was such a lovely collaborative experience. And we had a really similar viewpoint on what we wanted from the project. And she took the script and in her head, she saw it very, very similar to how I did. And I thought that was, you know, a really good match. And it was the same on this. And
Mother is like brilliant. It's difficult to direct in a way, like when your main character is a fridge, your main antagonist. But like it's done really well. Like it's written brilliantly. But I was like, I can imagine that's
but it can go very wrong very fast. And even because Mother was made under the same Galway Film Centre scheme that the radio was made. So me and Natasha and Sharon all applied separately. And mine was one of the shortlisted scripts, and there was a short list of directors, and they were all pitching their version of Mother. And I've heard from one or two different directors who didn't get picked, that they were trying to pitch my script for the scheme, and hearing their pitches and just how different they were. And not that they were worse or better, but they're just how it's not how I saw the script, but it's how they saw it, and that's how they wanted to do it. But then I heard Natasha's vision for it, and it aligned so much with mine. It was like, okay, then I think the right person came for that script. And ever since, so when La Tumba finally came around again, and Natalie from Spotica wanted to get it made, I knew Natasha was the person I wanted on board. And if she was free, I wanted her to bring all of her skills to it, because she's a brilliant director, and she's great with actors, and she has such a clear voice as the director. And I think it blends well with my dialogue and with the stuff I write on the page. So,
and like that, she can handle heavier themes, but she also knows her humor so well, and like that, I think the beats are so important for emphasizing that humor. Like the timing is everything, and I like even with the organic relationship between your two leads, and you know, like the pauses and the back and forth and the language, like it's maximized. Like you can really get it. Like
I think because it's not just straight up comedy, but it's not like this drama either. It's a weird balance between the two, and it's all about the bits of comedy and then the slower bits and letting that build. And so that was really important to me as a writer, that was going to be maintained, and that was exactly what Natasha saw when she read it the first time. So, like she's great. Everyone should work with Natasha. I love Natasha.
Yeah. Jesus, we're selling her. Sure, we work with her all the time. She is brilliant, exactly. And she makes me sourdough bread on Instagram. That's what I've seen. Laura, what about you?
In terms of collaborating with other people, I mean, I think, you know, like with the writer that I hadn't met before and I'd only met that day, you know, you could tell from the script that it's very genuine kind of story, and he was open to kind of collaborating, and I just think that's really important. And you know, the script is always the kind of starting point, and you can tell a lot from a writer, I think, from the tone of what they're writing and the style in which they're writing. And you know, I had written my own short previously, my debut short, No Place. So I know how hard it is to kind of put yourself out there and you know, and be open to kind of constructive notes that are going to help with the script. But also, he was also, you know, really clear on you know, the on what he wanted to keep in and what was really important to him. So for me, in terms of working with people, it's open to collaboration, really, I think, and keeping focused on the main goal, and as well with Evan, the director, you know, he was really into the script as well, and just kind of trying to do everything possible to make it happen. And just to mention as well, the DOP, Evan Barry, he we approached him quite early on as well. Just I had, you know, seen some of his previous work, and after chatting to him, he was really loved the script, and he actually came on board like right when we got the funding as well. So during COVID, we had these conversations, which I think were hugely beneficial for me in terms of, you know, learning about his process and how he works. And we put together, you know, Pinterest boards of different photographers that we liked, and the different style and look and grade. And that, you know, that I absolutely loved those conversations. I felt like, right, this is what I want to be doing. And it was a great, you know, distraction from what was going on as well. So he was super generous with his time, and I was really delighted that it all worked out, that everyone that had committed to it from the off was still available. However, I think it was like over a year and a half later by the time we got to make it last August. So yeah, collaboration, definitely.
No Place is beautiful, actually. I just gave it a quick look up there when we were talking. I was like, I knew it. I caught it at the Galway Film Fleadh, or not the Galway Film Fleadh, I caught it at the WIFT showcase. And
that's right, yeah.
Beautiful. It was just really poignant, but told so well. And the moment with the dollhouse, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. So that was made, the story behind that is basically that you know, I had decided that I wanted to give writing a shot, and it was inspired by a story that I had heard of a family in Ireland, actually, and then had listened to so many, you know, radio documentaries at that time, and still, you know, the housing crisis is still very much happening at the moment. But that short was really written for me to prove that I could do it myself, and I took out a loan to make it, so it was made for $4,000, and everybody that worked on it was paid as well. It's something that's really important to me, you know, having come to the industry quite late, was that everyone that was involved got paid. You know, it might never see the light of day, so I was really aware of making sure that nobody was put out of pocket to make it. So I was really, really surprised that it got into all of the festivals that it did, and it just kind of gave me the confidence then to keep going and to write more and apply for this scheme. So yeah,
like, and it's beautiful. It's really, really polished. Like it's again that it's very like, it's heartbreaking, but you are a very strong writer. You just take these kind of you interact with the subject matter in that very natural way. I thought the way the daughter, like, it's like the gleaming details worked really well for me, you know, like their day-to-day life, how difficult it was eating, finding food and stuff, and the mother doing the best to make it really natural and normal, but like that, like it just felt very kind of truthful and really well done.
Oh, great, thank you. I mean, I think, you know, with anything, it's about trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes, even though, you know, your life might be very different, but just trying to really think about every aspect of what that would entail if you found yourself, you know, in temporary accommodation and had to look after your kids. And I just think, you know, I spent a lot of time kind of talking to people and doing research and listening to stories, and just kind of, you know, took aspects of that and put it into it. And also the actor that I worked with, Michelle McMahon, she's a friend of mine, a former flatmate. So, you know, again, we actually spent a lot of time in parks reading through the script, talking about it. You know, she's absolutely brilliant, and she just brought so much and gave her heart and soul to the role, you know. And again, she hasn't a huge amount of work in front of the camera, but she really nailed it as well.
And Derek, what about you? Can you just tell me a little bit about your creative partnerships? So, you know, finding the producer, working with a script editor, you know, if your head's a department, like, how do you kind of find people to work with and cultivate those relationships?
So as part of this scheme, we had to choose producers from the Midwest. So the time I knew Carbonated Comics from a director they'd worked with before, and I'd seen a film they've done, and I was very impressed by the short films. And so when I had the opportunity to work with just producers from the Midwest, I went with them, and I worked with Greg Burrows as a producer. So he was the first person to come on board, and then we started working our way. So we were very, very lucky to have the people, the HODs that we had, because we were working on a very shoestring budget. So a lot of people came on board just based on interest in the story. They read the script, they were captivated by the idea and the concept of this mode being the antagonist in the story. So that was what drew a lot of our, and we had Neil, we had Fergal Lowler from the Cranberries. He did amazing work in the music. We had Evan Barry as our DOP, James Donnelly as our production designer, Louis Sheridan as our VFX makeup artist. She did incredible work. And we had Patrick Callum O'Brien as our VFX supervisor on set. So all of these people and many more people, even in the post-production side of things, Element post doing our color grading, and a DOP, DCP. Yeah, so it took a whole village and a whole very understanding, compassionate, friendly village, because we couldn't pay everyone as much as we wanted. So I'm very grateful for all the collaborative process that we had to get this film to the finish line. Yeah.
The special effects and it really worked like that with the sound mix, but I think it is such a big part of that kind of conceptual horror. Like it just sat so well theme wise as well with the way that it did. It was beautiful to watch. I'm kind of raging I didn't watch it on the big screen. Like I was like, this one looks so much better. So can you tell me, when can we see it on the big screen? When will it be in Galway?
Okay, so you can see You're Not Home in Galway on July 8th, 12 p.m. and July 9th at 10 p.m. So we're screening twice at the festival, and we are so excited and can't wait.
2 sets of eyeballs. That's brilliant. Like that's great to get that many people. Like the more people, industry people that get eyeballs on that, the better as well.
Thank you. We're so happy.
Jonathan, when can we see your lovely film at the Galway Film Fleadh?
So La Tomba is screening as part of New Shorts 4 on the Thursday at 12 o'clock.
And you'll be celebrating in the rowing club afterwards, I presume.
Indeed, I will.
On the Thursday. I want to congratulate you.
Snap. So mine's in the same program. So I think it's either 12 or 12:15 on the Thursday in the Town Hall Theatre. So yes, see you there.
So thanks so much for chatting with us, and you can get those tickets at galwayfilmfleadh.com.